So we've gone over the parts of the cell. We've gone over the cell membrane. Now we've got to figure out how the cell actually runs, how we can have all these reactions happen in it. Because really all a cell is a bunch of chemicals that got together and started thinking they were alive. So I know you guys are really excited about this. Back to chemistry. I know, it's biology. Why do we have to keep going back to chemistry? It's because all of this stuff is based on basic biological precepts. And you can tell it's chemistry because you have flasks with different colored liquids. Hey, right. The big thing you'll start noticing now is I just keep repeating myself. For instance, you have seen this exact same slide before. I believe we talked about it at the end of chemistry. We talked about how briefly, very, very briefly, all chemical reactions are going to require energy. We talked about most chemical reactions require a catalyst, and how chemical reactions will keep moving in a certain direction until they reach equilibrium, and that most of these reactions are going to happen dissolved in water. And that's where I really emphasized the water aspect, and I kind of glossed over the rest. Like, you weren't even tested on those things. That's what's coming up on this exam. This test. We're going to look at how energy goes into a system, what a catalyst is, and what chemical equilibrium is. Basic vocabulary I need you to understand is that on the left side of the equation, you have reactants. On the right side, you have products. Reactants can either combine or break apart to become products. I say that because I'm going to use those terms a lot today, and I need you to understand what I'm saying. If you don't understand a term I'm talking about, raise your hand and stop me so that I can explain it. Yes? The products and reactants part? What? Okay. Thanks, guys. No, seriously, that's good. That's really good. Reactants are what you're putting into a reaction. You know how you guys you've at some point in your life had some sort of chemical reaction happen by accident, right? Right, baking soda and vinegar, right? Yeah. All right, you take baking soda and vinegar. Those would be your reactants. You're putting them together. And the product's what comes afterwards. Does that make sense? Sorry, thanks for helping me explain that. No, and that's why I do ask you guys to stop me, because if you don't, there's going to be 10 other people that have no idea what I'm talking about. And I will happily stop and explain it. So we have reactants come together to form products, or reactants can be split apart to form products. So equilibrium. All reactions are going to move toward a state of equilibrium. They all want to equal a state where the rate of formation of products equals the rate of formation of reactants. That is, it's moving equally in both directions at the same time. It's just like an isotonic solution where the water is moving in both directions at the same time. A reaction will continue to proceed forward in one direction until eventually you hit a point where the amount of products being created equals the rate of formation of the reactants. So everything balances out. We talked about equilibrium when we talked about buffers too. So the rate of formation of hydrogen ions equals the rate of the destruction of hydrogen ions, or the binding of hydrogen ions. That's what allows the buffer to work. All reactions are trying to head toward this very, very stable state. So now we've got what's called our metabolism. Now, we've talked about metabolism before. This is kind of cool, I think, because all we're doing is going over some topics we've already covered. We're just looking at them in slightly new ways. Like metabolism. Metabolism is the sum of all of the reactions within the cell, whether they're catabolic or anabolic. What does it mean to be catabolic? It's bad. You're thinking ions, cations and anions. Catabolism and anabolism. It does, actually, yeah. hold on. Metabolism is. Never mind. Okay, and metabolism is how you process things? Yeah, it is. It's all of the reactions in the cell. So you have two big types of reactions. Catabolic reactions and anabolic reactions. It's okay. You got it. You got this. No, don't worry about it then. Yes.
Catabolism is breaking down a molecule.
Yep.
Anabolism is building.
Sorry, she got it first.
Sorry, I beat you.
Catabolism is breaking it down. Anabolism is building it back up. So when you have all of your catabolic reactions and all of your anabolic reactions combined, you have your metabolism.
Cats break it down and builds it up.
Yes. Have you ever heard of anabolic steroids? No?
But steroids build.
Right. Anabolic steroids build muscle. Let's see. That's right. Cats destroy things. Oh, I have a stupid fat cat.
I love fat cats.
Yeah, well, my stupid fat. I just bought an entire new living room set. You see where this is going, don't you? One of them.
Just return it.
No, I can't return it. I tried. Oh, are you talking about the cat or the?
Couch.
I tried the cat too. So right, so there you go. That's a great way of remembering. Stupid cats freaking destroy furniture. Thus, catabolic reactions destroy things. Thanks. I'm keeping that one forever and ever. Anabolic builds things. So anabolic reactions build them up. So I don't know how you can remember that.
I'm going to remember the steroids right now.
Yeah, anabolic steroids. So, okay, how about this? A little bit further in. We're going to hit something you've already talked about and you should know backwards and forwards. And I'm going to totally call on Sarah for this. Yeah, you got this, Sarah. No, you got this, Sarah. Don't worry, you can always rely on Reagan. Why? Because you're the good one. I don't know. It's the best thing I could come up with on the spot. Oh. So, here we go, Sarah. Are you ready? What kind of reaction is going to take two molecules and put them together? A condensation reaction, right? So, I know. Okay, how about this? What kind of reaction will split things apart using water? Shh. What? Yeah. Sarah's got this. Hello. Hydrolysis. Right. A hydrolysis reaction. Okay, so we've got condensation reactions are building. So what kind of reaction are they? Anabolic or catabolic? Anabolic. Hydrolysis reactions are breaking them down. They're catabolic. Now get this, and we talked about this a little bit before, I think. What happens when you break bonds? What's released? Energy is released, right? And then when you're building something up, what happens with energy? It's stored. That's like the whole lecture today. Yeah. So, well, no, I'm going to give you some more terms, and we're going to see some graphs. But if you understand that concept of you break something, you release energy, you build something, you store energy, you got it. Then we're going to talk about ways of reducing the amount of energy it takes to build something. I'm so proud of you guys. So, we talked about this macromolecule called proteins. One type of protein, one category of protein are called enzymes. Enzymes speed up reactions in the cell. That's their whole job. They speed them up. So, Venn diagram. My daughter's been working a lot with Venn diagrams lately. So, they're on my mind. So we got large category of macromolecules. One subgroup of that are proteins. Sort of like that. And then overlapping the proteins would be the catalyst group. And then where catalysts and proteins overlap, you have enzymes. So enzymes are catalysts. They are also proteins that speed up reactions in the cell. Okay, so I used a lot of words there. Do you have questions? So if it speeds up a process, it's called a catalyst. An enzyme is a type of catalyst. Yes. Yeah, macromolecules. Because remember, there are 4 classes of macromolecules: proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acids. There we go. So, in order to understand how we can speed up reactions, we need to understand how energy works. So now we're moving even away from chemistry and talking a little bit about physics. But this is like baby level, not baby physics, but it's really at most middle school level physics. You don't need to know much physics for biology. We have to understand a little bit about energy. Energy is the ability to promote change and do work. And there are 2 broad types of energy: kinetic energy and potential energy. Has anybody never heard of these before? Okay, these are things that you've probably talked about. These are really easy to test on in SOLs. So the idea is, think of kinetic energy as the energy of motion, the energy of movement, and potential energy is that stored energy. So if looking at this, what is this thing called? A roller coaster. You have it building energy, storing energy, the potential energy increases, kinetic energy increases, potential, kinetic. And you'll notice there's a relationship between them. As potential energy decreases, kinetic energy increases, and vice versa. You can convert from one form of energy to another. That conversion, or the study of that conversion, is known as thermodynamics. You've probably heard of thermodynamics before. It's a really big, scary word. Thermodynamics. Yeah, thermo, so you're looking at heat, and dynamics, so the changing of heat. You don't need to know much about thermodynamics except for 2 things. The 2 laws, that's right. And that is the most important rule we have to remember. The first law of thermodynamics: energy can neither be created nor destroyed. This is really, really important. We all knew that, right? Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's only transferred from one form to another in the universe. We don't know what happens in black holes. I'm not terribly worried about them. They're not going to affect the way biology works on Earth for a long time. Well, that's going to be a long time. And if it kills us, that's that. Don't worry about it. I was wrong. I'll admit it then. So what I want to go over as far as first law of thermodynamics is basic photosynthesis. Very, very basic. The sun provides light. We good on that? Everybody understood that? That light is coming at us in the form of waves or energy, kinetic energy. So kinetic energy is coming from the sun and striking the pigments in the chloroplast. These are called the chlorophyll. So you're taking energy, kinetic energy, it's striking a pigment, and that pigment converts that kinetic energy into potential energy of a bond. So we're building sugar here. We're using that kinetic energy to build sugar. So far, so good? Kinetic to potential. Now we're going to, what kind of reaction is that for building this molecule? Anabolic. It's building a molecule. Now we're going to take that sugar, and it gets transported over to the mitochondrion. What does the mitochondrion do? It's the site of aerobic cellular respiration, which means it's going to be take that sugar, using some oxygen, and break it. All right, so we've got potential energy in the bonds of glucose now being released as kinetic energy. So we're going from potential energy, kinetic energy of the sun to potential energy of the bonds of glucose to releasing that energy in the mitochondrion. To make ATP, you bind ATP together, you're using the energy from the glucose to build new molecules. So it's back to potential energy. We are not losing energy in the system. We are simply transforming it from one form to another. The second law of thermodynamics says that transferring or transforming energy will increase the amount of entropy, or the degree of disorder, the amount of unusable energy. So we're not losing energy. What we are losing is usable energy. It might be released as excess heat. It might be released as any other form of energy, but it is still there. It's just we can't use it. As far as entropy, it's increasing disorder in a system. There have been points in your life where you've been left home all by yourself, right? Yes. I know. It's wonderful. Have you noticed that no matter how much you try, you still end up having to clean the place at the end? It's because entropy always increases unless you put energy into the system. So you need to add energy to keep it clean. Otherwise, it's just going to fall apart all on its own. This is coffee art. I know, weird, isn't it? People take the time to do art in their coffee. Now, is that going to stick around for a long time? If your barista did this, one, give them a tip. In fact, just do that in general. They need it. But two, how long is that going to stick around? Yeah, like a minute, 2 minutes. It's even worse if you want to stir your coffee, right? You just walk. Yeah, you walk it from. You're like, oh, this is great. I have to take a picture of it right now because it's not going to last. Is it possible to make it last? No. It is. What? No. You got a spoon here. You could keep adding energy, stick the spoon in, and keep rebuilding it. Oh, no, stop combining together, just reworking it. But that takes a lot of energy. You're investing energy in the system. That energy that you're investing would prevent the entropy from overwhelming the system. So when you transform energy from one form to another, from kinetic to potential or back again, each time you do that, you're going to increase the degree of disorder, or you're going to lose a little bit of that energy in the process to the system. It still exists. It's still there. But you cannot use it. It is no longer usable. Now there's, yes?
So entropy is energy?
Energy is the degree of disorder in a system. Entropy is, how messed up things get when you're not taking care of it. You can prevent entropy by adding energy. Trying to raise a kid. If you don't invest energy, that kid's going to be messed up. Some of you guys are products of that. You totally understand. You're like, I was like, yeah, okay, I did kind of raise myself. The amount of energy, and there's been a ton of studies, the amount of energy you put into kids really gives them a positive, a good push in life. Like, you push too much, though, they become rebels. So, and then it comes down to who cares? This is all physics and chemistry, and this is biology. Stop talking about this stuff. The reason we need to care about this is because thermodynamics, these two laws, place constraints on what a cell can do. A cell can't violate physical laws. So we've talked about energy. Energy in the system is known as free energy. This is energy that you are able to use. Sometimes through entropy, you lose some of that energy as unusable energy, energy you can't use to do work. So free energy, what you use to do work, plus that unusable energy equals the total amount of energy in the system. That total amount of energy doesn't change. That's what remains constant, because energy is neither created nor destroyed. What changes is the amount of free energy and the amount of unusable energy. No, I won't have you do mathematical precepts asking you to take, here's this amount of energy, here's that amount of energy, calculate it. I don't think that's important for introductory courses. It is kind of important. It's just understanding the differences between the two broad types of chemical reactions. If a reaction doesn't need energy to begin, that is, if an action in its process releases some energy, it's called exergonic. Back to our earlier stuff. What kind of reaction could be described as exergonic? It releases energy. Catabolic reactions are going to release energy. And give an example of a catabolic reaction. An explosion, but I'm thinking, give an example of one we've talked about, a chemical description of one. I wish Sarah was here. It's the other one. It's the other one. Hydrolysis. That's okay when I say Sarah. Now everyone thinks condensation. I've trained you guys like Pavlov trained his dog. I'm like, Sarah, and you're like, condensation! Condensation. No, it's hydrolysis. A hydrolysis reaction could release some energy. So condensation would be an endergonic reaction, otherwise known as what? It requires energy, so it's going to be anabolic. All right, exergonic reactions. Let me go over this before we get ahead. We've got the course of the reaction, so the reaction occurring over the time. Over here we have the reactants, those things going into the reaction. They start off with a lot of energy. The products at the end have less energy associated with them. The difference between it is the amount of energy that's released or given off. So you have a high state of energy, and then it ends at a low state of energy. So that energy was released to the system in an exergonic reaction. An example of an exergonic reaction might be, do you guys know what hot hands are? Yeah. Yes, you guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah, you open up this pack, and there's a reaction that begins to occur. Once it interacts with oxygen, suddenly they start to heat up, these little pads. And as they heat up, good, okay. As they heat up, they're giving off energy. That's an exergonic reaction. They're giving that energy to you. The flip side are endergonic reactions. These are going to require energy. They need energy to happen. They're also called anabolic reactions. So here you have reactants with a low amount of free energy, and in order to get them to come together, to get something new, you have to add energy to the system. The difference between the amount of energy in the reactants and the products is the amount of energy you need to start the reaction, to get it going. Okay, so now give me an example of an endergonic reaction. We've already done it. What? Yeah, it's an anabolic reaction. Okay, wait. Hey, Sarah, what is an example of an anabolic reaction? It's the same thing I always ask you. It is condensation. That is the answer. Whenever I call on you from here on out, the answer is condensation reactions. Okay. Okay, I'll call on somebody else for that. Colin Reagan? No, Reagan knows these things. She's the smart one. Endergonic reactions. So all of the combined endergonic and exergonic reactions put together will give you your metabolism. And they should yield a, hopefully, net zero energy total. Now, we constantly have to take energy into our system, though, right? How do we get energy? Not trying to trick you. Food. You eat things. You eat things, you break them down, you steal their electrons, and you make those electrons do some work for you. So, we've got to get free energy. We need energy to get these reactions going. We can get it from food, and we have to take that food and turn it into a usable cellular energy source. And that usable cellular energy source is adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. This is the major energy carrier in the cell. You can always recognize ATP, well, for the most part, because that TP, triphosphate, what does tri mean? 3. 1, 2, 3 phosphates. So get this. You're going to take that ATP and you're going to break it down. What kind of reaction will you use to break down ATP, to split it? A catabolic reaction. And chemically, what kind? If you're going to use water to do it. Hydrolysis. So for the hydrolysis of ATP, you're going to take a molecule of ATP and you're going to split it. You're going to break a bond. You're going to remove a phosphate. That's a catabolic reaction. It's going to give off energy. If it gives off energy, how would you describe it? Exergonic, catabolic, exergonic, hydrolysis. Any of these will be fine. So this ATP here gets split using water. Right. So the phosphate is cut off. The hydrolysis of ATP is how the cell gets a lot of its cellular energy. This is what moves energy around the cell. These are like little cellular batteries. They can move from one place to another. Just like you can charge a battery at a wall socket and then move it to like a remote control and then move it from there to something else. So if you can attach an endergonic reaction to an exergonic reaction, so you attach these reactions where you need energy to one that gives off energy, you can have spontaneous reactions. Let me break that down. There are endergonic reactions that need energy. You need to build something, right? So you need energy to do that. The energy you can use to build things comes from you breaking other things down. So you get energy by breaking something down, and that energy can then be transferred to another reaction. So you're moving energy from one form to another, from kinetic energy to potential to kinetic to potential. Each time you do that, you lose a little bit of the energy to the system, entropy. But you can do it. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's just lost. It's sort of just hanging out. It's just we can't use it. It might be released as heat or light, but we can't use it for running our reactions. That's why you have to, even though energy is neither created nor destroyed, you have to keep eating. You need to keep replenishing the usable energy. So you pair the hydrolysis of ATP with your other reactions. Questions so far?